Yes.
Welcome to the Co-Living Circle podcast. I'm the host and founder, Paul Burke. Co-Living Circle is a great place to find co-living. And I'm joined with a very special guest today, all the way in Javea, Spain, Jon. And it's already been decided that I'm probably going to butcher your last name, Jon, and I apologize. But you can give me a little lesson on that. I'm going to try anyway. Jon Hormaetxe?
Jon Hormaetxe.
Hormaetxe?
Yeah, that's good. That's good enough.
Okay, there's an X at the end that makes it difficult for me. But anyway, Jon, thank you for joining us. Jon is the general manager at Sun and Co-Living, which is a co-living space in Spain. And awesome to have you on here, Jon.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I think one of the great things, and I probably start out every episode talking about this, but I find it really interesting how people get to co-living. There's no real basically pipeline to co-living. People come from hospitality, entertainment, fashion. Sometimes it's just totally random, and they know someone who's like, hey, come do this with me. So tell us about how you got into the co-living industry and got attached to Sun and Co-Living.
So look, before I moved to Javea 5 years ago, I used to work in Edinburgh in Scotland. I used to work there in a co-working space. That's how I met the owner of what these days Sun & Co. I was in a co-working conference in Spain, and Edu, the other co-founder here, he had this idea of doing something in his grandparents' house here in Javea. He's an architect, and he had this idea of running this space as a co-living space, but none of us exactly knew what co-living was back then. It was October 2015, and let me take that out. And back then it was like, okay, I know what co-working is, but we heard about a few co-living spaces here and there, but we didn't really know what was that. But we were like, okay, we have this building here. Edu, he's an architect. We can kind of try and refurbish the space and start trying to find out who are these digital nomads and how to attract them to a place like Javea, which is mostly sunny. And we knew that I was coming from co-working, and co-working it's an industry where community building is really, really important. He was coming from hospitality industry where he knew how to do that. So it looked like the perfect match, right? Like somebody coming from the co-working industry, another person coming from hospitality, putting those things together and creating a co-living space for remote workers. And that's how we started here.
And so did you mostly decide on being tailored specifically to digital nomads, really based on sort of your experience with co-working? Was that the plan from the get-go? Or, I mean, I guess 5 years ago, you really only had co-living for digital nomads. Well, anyway, how did you decide on digital nomads as that's who you would try to attract to this co-living space?
Yeah, so before this building, before being a co-living space, it used to be like a hostel. So that's our main target were tourists that were kind of trying to stay here during the summer season, but we realized that we weren't able to attract enough tourists the rest of the year. That's how we all decided to kind of transition into co-living. So the first approach was, okay, let's try to find tourists but are gonna stay longer and that are gonna want to come here even if it's winter. That's why we put our focus on digital nomads and remote workers. We were kind of finding or seeing that there were already this movement starting off in Bali, in Southeast Asia, it was growing little by little. In the Canary Islands, there was also another co-living space. So mainly, we thought that this kind of target could be interested in a location like this. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's also about numbers, I would say, because the business model that we built here in this space with the number of rooms we had was created for shorter stays. So At the end of the day, if somebody stays for 2 weeks, it's going to pay more per night than if somebody stays for 8 months. So the price per night is going to be lower if somebody stays longer. So the business model that we built in this house was more focused on shorter stays. Not as short as in a hostel or a hotel, but not as long as in a long stay co-living space.
Got it. And what is the average stay at Sun & Co?
The average stay is three weeks. So usually our price changes if you stay more than 14 nights or if you stay more than a month. So usually people tend to stay on average a month or 2 weeks, more or less. It's true that now after COVID, we also were expecting people to stay longer. But it's true that we are finding out that the reality is that people still stays on average for 3 weeks.
Yeah. I want to get back to real quick on the point of, so in 2015, when this idea first started, like you said, there was maybe Bali, there's a couple places it was big, but was there any hesitancy as far as you were on the ground floor of this? Was there any sort of hesitancy as far as getting involved in this, given it wasn't really mainstream at the time? So it was sort of something that was maybe a little bit out there.
It wasn't easy at the beginning, also because Javea is not a popular destination among the foreign visitors. So internationally, it's not popular. Like, I guess if you set up a co-living space, maybe in Lisbon or in Barcelona, maybe you can attract some people, or maybe some people feel attracted by the city and suddenly find you as an accommodation for their stay in that city. But in our case, we were attracting people to a place that they didn't even know. So plus all of the bookings, something we were sure and we really wanted to focus on was on the community. So all of the bookings that we still receive come from our own website. It's true that there are a few directories there, but at least everybody who comes to Sun & Co, they come to Sun & Co. None of them come to Javea and find Sun & Co as a solution for their accommodation. So that made it a little bit more difficult even to find these people, right? Like, they needed to find that Sun & Co exists, and then they needed to feel attracted by what we were selling as an experience, and then come here. So at the beginning, it wasn't easy, but it's true that there weren't that many co-living spaces, and I think that play a good role or in favor of us. So because there weren't many co-living spaces where people were searching for co-living in Spain, not many people knew what co-living was, but the few of them that knew what co-living was, they were finding us. The same in Europe, like people were searching for co-living in Europe. People in the States, for example, that they wanted to work remotely and they hear about co-living and they decided to come to Europe. They used to like search on Google co-living Europe, and we were popping up the first ones there. So I think that gave us that attracted a lot of people to our co-living space. So that's how we started. It's true that at the beginning, I think there was something good as well, because we had our first few guests. I remember when at the beginning, I used to live in this house. So maybe the first time we were co-living, it was just me with somebody else. And that was a co-living, right? Like only 2 people, me and the guy there. But it's true that because none of us knew what co-living was or how the experience should look like, both of us were really happy, and I was really excited. The first guest was here, and then another one came, and we were 3 of us, 4 of us. But since they didn't experience co-living somewhere else, they came with expectations, and I think that also helped us like build like a good experience, and that gave us also a lot of time to test and see what's working, see what's not working, improve, hear to our guests, and little by little the ball started rolling.
Yeah, and you mentioned and then the experience part is so important. And you mentioned there's other cities that are probably more prevalent, popular tourist destinations like Barcelona. As far as the experience that Javea and Sun & Co bring, what is that that attracts people specifically to the city and Sun & Co?
Look, well, obviously the weather is an important factor. Like when you have the ability to work from wherever you want, because you work remotely, and if you choose to travel, you're always gonna look, or most of the time you're gonna try to find a place that is warm. I always say the same, like when somebody come to me and ask me, do you think it's a good idea if I open up this co-living space for digital nomads in these locations, in this location? I always tell them like, yes, but I always feel that it's easier if you are located in a place that most of the year is sunny than in a place that most of the year is rainy, because most of the people like sun and not as many people like rain.
Yes.
It's gonna be easier if you are located by the sea, or in you can, or if you compare that to a co-living space that is located in the mountains, because I still feel that more people like the sea. And then it's gonna be easier if you have a cheap co-living space than an expensive one. That means like if you are located in a country that is cheaper or than other countries, it's gonna be easier for you. For example, Spain is cheaper than Northern Europe or the States, so that's attractive to this type of target. The same way people go to Bali or to Indonesia.
Yeah.
If there are some exceptions, but I think the probabilities are going to be higher if you choose to be maybe in a cheaper country that is sunny and that is located by the beach. So I think that's three key aspects that are important for me, and three key aspects that made people come to Javea. But at the same time, I think most of the people, they need those three things, but then at the same time, what they make they choose us, I think, is mostly the experience they're gonna get here and the focus we have on people, because at the end of the day, a remote worker who is traveling or a digital nomad who is traveling is and at least to a co-living space is looking for meaningful relationships and is looking to find a place that care about people and a place that tries to connect the guests with each other.
Yeah.
So I think that angle is what makes people finally choose us over other people. Obviously, like website is important, pictures are important, and Javea is beautiful. And actually, I moved here 5 years ago. I wasn't expecting to be as beautiful as it is, but I think people find out that once they are here.
Yeah, I think I think the good distinction is there's, at least in the US, there's co-living spaces in, probably not tier 1 cities like New York or Los Angeles, but even in smaller cities like where I'm at in Columbus, Ohio, one is opening up where it's more long-term, right? So people can stay maybe 6, 9, 12 months, and it's an alternative to renting an apartment. Whereas if you're attracting digital nomads, maybe Columbus is not the best city, or Detroit, Michigan, somewhere in the Midwest, not the best city, because who wants to, if you can work anywhere, like you said, I personally want to work on the beach. I want to work on the water. I want to work somewhere where there's sand. I don't want to work in the snow personally. So I think that's a good point. When you talk about community, you obviously have a lot of experience there coming from a co-working background. Well, what does that look like at Sun & Co?
So our focus was really clear that we needed to put our focus on the people and providing them like a good experience. We always believe on personal and professional growth all together. I think this is kind of a unique space where not only Sun & Co, but co-living spaces like Sun & Co, a unique space where you are gathering people under one roof that are working together and also living together. So you have the opportunity to make them grow professionally and also personally. And there are not many places in the world that can make or can create a experience or an intense experience like this one. So we always believe on that. I know that maybe you can find other locations and maybe you can go and share a house with other like-minded people, and that's good enough. That can be good, but we always try to make something else there and try to be intentional here. So one of the things we do in order to achieve that is that we believe that community is built when you give, not expecting anything in return. So that means like we always encourage people to give and to give back to the community and to help and not expecting anything in return. And the way we do that is that we host a family meeting every Monday. So every Monday at 7 p.m. we have a family meeting where host and guests gather together, and we use this time of the week first to do some type of introductions. Then we also discuss different things that we need to discuss around the house. We always try to make our members responsible of everything that is happening. So it's not like we set up the rules and we tell them what to do and what not to do, or when to do this and when to do that. We try to always make them feel part of any decision that is taken in the house. Yeah. And then we schedule the week together. So for that, we have professional events and also social events. Professional events, we do a skill shares where there is somebody in the house that can teach other people about any certain type of skill, and it's usually an hour session. We also host masterminds, where it's an hour session as well, when there is one person in the house is facing a challenge, can be professional or personal, and the other people in the house try to help this person. And we also schedule social events like surfing or hiking or cooking together. And all of these events are led by somebody in the house. So there's one person always that is leading each of the events. So there is an SEO skill share, for example, and it's led by Valentino. And there is like a coaching session and it's led by Paul. And there is a cooking together night and it's led by Theo. So we do that for two reasons. One, because operationally it's also easier for us if all of them are responsible of making those events happen. But also because we believe, again, as I said before, that community is built when you give, not expecting anything in return. So we always encourage them to organize the stuff for the others. Because if I do that for them, and it happened before, if I'm in charge of organizing all of the events for them, they feel that they are paying for that, so they don't value as much. While if one person like me, if I'm a guest and there is another guest like me who is actually organizing this event, I'm not paying that person anything. It's just doing it for free and for because he wants to give back or to just use that time of his life for the others. And I think that's when you start, like when you see that happening, suddenly automatically you feel that energy around, and you start like also like cooking some lentils and just posting on the group, like, guys, there are some lentils there, feel free to take some if you want. Or you start like seeing, oh, everybody's like doing something. Like I don't think people feel forced, but people feel willing also to say, okay, guys, I'm really good at marketing or at Facebook ads. If you have any questions, please come to me. And I've seen here like people with, I don't know, a remote company with 50 employees, and just dedicating his time with maybe a consulting hour of that person can be like super expensive, giving that for free or because he wants to help somebody that is just sitting next to him and also living with him. So that's the way we approach community and community building here in the house. And so far it has been like a really, I think it has been the key. We also, as I said before, there are around like 8 events per week, more or less. There is one event per week, more or less. It can be professional or social, but we also tell people, and we don't want people to feel overwhelmed. And obviously, like if you don't want to join one of these events, you don't have to. Feel free to join the ones you are interested in. But yeah.
Well, I think I don't know. I think that should go on a shirt, John. Community is built when you're not expecting anything in return. I think that's like an amazing saying. Who came up with that?
Well, the whole team.
Okay. You can take credit for it. I'll give you that.
Yeah, well, it's true that the idea of making them lead the event the events came up from an operational decision, I think, but it's true that later I saw the impact that that had on the community building environment, and I came up with that sentence. I can say.
Well, I'm a huge fan, and I think that's just very reflective of, in general, how to live a happy life, a good life of generosity. And even when you're not expecting, it mostly comes back around. So that's probably the coolest part about it. It's like a boomerang in that way. That's all amazing. I can't wait to come visit at some point if my fiance lets me. So one thing I want to talk about, Jon, is so co-living has sort of opened up since 2015. You guys started. It's gone more broad than digital nomads, which I think was sort of the original co-living in a lot of ways. What do you see the future of co-living for digital nomads looking like, given co-living in general is changing a lot? And it seems like there are more co-living spaces. I don't know if there's increased competition you feel in Spain or just in Europe in general. Sort of, how do you see that shaking out?
I think that at some point we should or we will start calling what we do differently. So we are at this point calling co-living to residential co-living or long stay co-living, and we are calling co-living to short stay co-living or digital nomad co-living. And I think at some point we need to start differentiating these two things, because first of all, both have a different target, both kind of cover different needs. It's just a different product. I think it's a different sector. So I think co-living, residential co-living or long stay co-living, because all of the investment is going there, because it's the margins are bigger, and obviously you can build more rooms, and the demand is higher, because you know that in big cities housing market is a problem for many young professionals. It's not updated since a long time ago, and it needs a refresh. It needs more flexibility, and also loneliness rates are growing and growing also in cities. So this is also solving another big issue. And I think all of the attention is going to residential co-living, which is fine. But it's true that in order for us to highlight as well and to make remote workers or digital nomad easier to find us, I think at some point we will end up calling something different. And I heard already like some people are calling the way we do co-living and co-working. But I think it's going to be a problem. I think it's already a problem for many people. If I want to try co-living in Spain and type co-living in Spain, it's going to be harder and harder to see, okay, no, but I want to try co-living, but only for 3 weeks. No, I don't want to stay for 8 months in Madrid or Barcelona. So that's on one hand. And then on the other hand, I think co-living, we are in a funny middle ground. So obviously, hospitality industry is always looking forward for short stays where people can pay a lot of money only in 1, 2, 3, 4 nights. And then we are fighting against the other residential co-living where people are staying longer. So as a clear example is the following. In our case, if you stay for a month in a single room, you are paying 40 euros per night, okay? 40 euros per night, if you compare that to a hotel, it's not much money. When I go on holidays, 40 euros a night is nothing. Like, it's not money at all. So I feel that it's cheap. But if I stay for a month, it's 1,200 euros. And if you compare that to a apartment or an apartment when you are staying for a year in an apartment, 1,200 euros is a lot. So I think we are in this middle ground of I don't know, in a market where you need to have a big building to make the numbers profitable, but then the co-living experience is not the same, because again, like it's going to become more like a hotel or a hostel because people stay shorter. It's more profitable to create a hotel and shorter stays. The demand is not that high. So I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see how remote working evolves. I know that more and more people are working remotely, and I think more and more people are going to be traveling. But it's going to be interesting to see which companies and how these companies who are offering co-living for remote workers make the numbers work. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. It's a funny size. In our case, for example, we had 16 people capacity. So it's not many people. It's just a good amount of people to make the numbers work, but maybe you need a bigger co-living space in the same location to make the numbers work better, but then maybe there is not enough demand. So we'll see how it evolves. Like, it's gonna be interesting to see. But as I said before, I think the most important thing is to differentiate the names. And if we are calling co-living to a residential market, maybe we should start calling co-living, co-working, or co-living for digital nomads to what we are doing.
Yeah, I think that'll be really interesting to see where it goes because, like you said, a place like Starcity or Common, these companies that have raised, $50, $100 million, they look very different from, a co-living space in Bali or in Spain or, I mean, even here in the US. But it all goes under the general umbrella under co-living, which I think probably to me or you, if we're in the space, is not confusing at all. But for someone who has, who's just like, oh, I want somewhere to stay, I want to do something different, then it gets really, really confusing for the consumer. So I think you're totally right about that. You brought up, I'm not sure if you did bring it up actually, but anyway, last topic I have anyway is obviously COVID has taken over a lot of the conversation, and especially with co-living, first couple months seemed like it was taking a huge hit. Then a couple companies announced that their numbers looked really good. How have your residents and you guys been affected by it as far as, what changes have you been making? How have people reacted to those changings? And then are people pessimistic, optimistic? I mean, we're in October. I remember talking to people about this more than 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Like, how are people reacting to this? And it's so we're still on it, and it's still probably going to be at least probably a few more months. Who knows? What is happening over there? What can you tell us about that?
I think it's really interesting what's happening here. Obviously, like this is you can easily link the previous question with this one, because I think the residential co-living, I think it reacted really well to all of this COVID situation, and I think that's something to take a look at and really value. But in our case, we are mostly located in the hospitality industry. So obviously, compared to hotels and mostly hotels in big cities, we are surprisingly doing well because people are still traveling. I guess like digital nomads in this case, the feeling of freedom is something that they feel really connected to. So staying in their hometown is harder than for other people who can maybe travel around their city or stay in the country. For them, it's even more important to keep moving. And I think they are less afraid also because it's a young market. I think people are not afraid of COVID in this case, but they are really afraid of closing the borders or flight cancels. So they are not worried, at least our clients are not worried about their health. They are worried about being stuck in one place. So I think that's something that is stopping them from coming here. It's true that we reduced our capacity, so we were able to host 20 people maximum, more or less. We were having 16, and now we reduced the capacity to 13. because we thought that people will feel more secure. But it's also interesting to see that here people in the house, they feel absolutely fine with all of these situations. So we were a little bit skeptical, like, okay, let's try to make them feel as comfortable as possible. But I think they accepted that if they are coming to a co-living space, they are living together, and that's fine. And since they are living together, they are trying to keep things as normal as possible. Obviously, we implemented like some hand sanitizer when people come from outside. Mask is mandatory here out on the street in Spain. So at least we make sure that people take the measurements that they have to when they are out in the house. But when people are inside, we kind of live as a family, so to say.
Yeah.
So again, like, I think what is stopping people from traveling is more that they are afraid of being stuck in one place. But at the same time, we are, it's 10 of us right now in the house. And it's true that it's another peculiarity that we have many people from the UK. Obviously, 30% of our clients were from the States before COVID, and right now they cannot travel to Spain. Then we have many people from Germany, and also many people from the Netherlands. And I don't know why, but suddenly we never had many people from the UK, and now the house is 80% of the house are people from the UK. And I think because the situation is as bad as in Spain, probably in the UK, so they rather be in Spain than in the UK. While in Germany, for example, and this is just an assumption, things are better than in Spain, so they rather stay there and not come to Spain. So yeah, I mean, as I said, obviously the occupancy is a little bit lower than last year because October is high season for us, and it's when we celebrate our anniversary. But I can tell you that we are a lot happier than expected, because we weren't sure if we were going to be open during these months, and yeah, the house is up and running. So that's
wow,
good.
That's fascinating. I wouldn't have expected, but it makes sense, because if you are a digital nomad, freedom is your biggest value, likely. And so you're like, I rather, you know, I mean, not be killed, but like, I'd rather get sick than be stuck. Which is just kind of that's probably pretty different than most people, but that's interesting.
Well, I think also you can get sick everywhere. Like if you are not gonna get less sick if you stay in your hometown. You can get sick, or even if you live in a city like London, for example. I'm sure that you can feel a lot safer in a town, in a small town by the sea in Spain like Javea, than in Paris or London. So it's actually it's safer to be in a town like this than in their hometowns in most of the cases.
Yeah, I definitely believe that. And then even from what you hear anyway, is that it's better to be in the sunshine. COVID does not like the sunshine. So for that reason alone, I'd rather be in Spain, let alone all the other stuff. So anyway, John, is that's all the questions I had. I can't tell if this thing is muted or not. All right, so we just had a bit of a technical difficulty. So I'm selling my Zoom stock right now. But John, that was all the questions I had for you. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
I'm thinking that we covered all. Like I will invite everybody to, if you come to Spain, even if you are not a remote worker or a digital nomad, that you have a project in mind that you want to develop, this is also a great place to feel inspired by other people who have been already working remotely for a long time. And also, if you want to discover the beautiful Javea, which is a secret we have here on the Mediterranean coast in Spain, I will be more than happy to have you here in Sananco. And apart from that, I think I haven't heard anything else to say.
Awesome. Well, like I said, John, I'm going to try and take you up on that offer sometime in the next year or two. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, Jon, thank you so much for joining me. It's been awesome. And then we're going to put all the links so people can visit Sun & Co and whatnot at the bottom. Thanks, Jon. You were great.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you.